This is episode 3 of the podcast.
4 technically.
4 technically. We lost one episode, which we talked about. But disclaimer,
yes.
I think we're all kind of like getting over some of the funk.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not. I'm just fine.
No, we're not
I'm
contagious
going to go home and take some vitamin C.
Probably a good idea.
Right. Yeah. No, we're all good now.
Yeah.
But just some of that lingering nasal and throat, congestion kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so we'll just call this episode 3.
Episode 3.
And we got Jared Stevenson here with us.
Hello.
Jared, thanks for
Convex.
joining us.
Yeah,
So I think this is your first podcast appearance, right?
Yeah. This is the first time any of us have ever been on a podcast, and
Nice.
we've done other things. We've been in some magazines and done some presentations, but
Sweet.
just adding another thing to the repertoire and something else to be out there for us.
Awesome. I'm super excited about this because Jared and I actually go back. We were just talking 11 years now. I guess 12 years technically. We met in 2012.
Yeah,
or something like
I think
that.
so.
So
We started chasing in 2013.
yeah. So we've known each other for a little while.
All right, so let's out the gate.
Okay.
Best memory chasing together. Got one?
I mean, it's got to be during our 2013 trip.
Yeah.
Just everything, because we went out together in late 2013, May 27th to May 31st, something like that, and it was the most wild experience of our lives because we saw the highest highs and the lowest lows.
Yeah.
We went from being ecstatic about seeing that Bennington tornado, a tornado had sat in a field and just spun in the same place for 45 minutes,
Nice.
and wildest thing we've ever seen, to running for our lives a few days later on May 31st from the El Reno tornado and dealing with the fallout from that.
Right.
So, I think that's got to be my favorite memory of our chasing together. Just because, everything, you don't, Warren and I knew each other, but we weren't really that close. But, you spend 5 days in the same vehicle with somebody.
Yeah, you smell the same by the end
you
of the
smell
5
the same by the
days.
end
Funny
of it.
we know something about it.
And you end up going through everything, and you're brothers for life after that.
Yeah, I still think 2013 was the like you said, the most full chasing experience I've still had
Really?
since then. I mean, just kind of experiencing everything from, like you said, the Bennington, Kansas, still my favorite tornado of all time.
You got some wild shots of that.
That was such a good tornado. I guess, Jared, tell us a little bit about, Convex, what you guys do, kind of your role and, the other team members and stuff as well, and then kind of the goal of what you guys do through Convex.
Yeah, well, Convex stands for the Collective Observations in or Near Vortices Experiment. What we are trying to do is we're trying to deploy instrumentation probes in the path of tornadoes. Yeah. We're trying to gather data from ideally inside, but also around the vortex, wind speed, temperature, humidity, pressure, wind direction, and of course video.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is we're trying to take that data and give it to people who can make better sense of it than we can. Because I can read the numbers. I can tell you that the pressure was low inside the tornado. I can tell you how fast the winds were moving. What I can't tell you is how you can build a better house with that.
Right.
What I can't tell you is how you can warn the public better with that information. So we are taking the data that we gather and we are giving it for free to the National Weather Service, universities that can use it, anyone who can make better sense of it than we can and can really put it toward, a better goal. So we get the data and we give it to who can use it.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's great. And so I guess, have you, let's say, what's been your most successful intercept when it comes to putting probes in tornadoes, very, very difficult, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
dangerous.
Dangerous.
It
So
is difficult and dangerous.
yeah, talk about the kind of the process that you guys go through to do that, and then what was one of your most successful intercepts to date?
Yeah, so I run a team of 5 total. Myself, I consider myself the team leader, I suppose, because I like the call for safety to come down to me. I feel responsible for the people who are with me. We have 4 other people besides myself. Blaze Edwards out of Oklahoma. He is kind of the co-founder of this. He and I have been chasing together since 2013 as well. Evan Coverdale is a dispatcher actually for airlines.
Okay.
And so he knows a lot about weather and more of the technical aspects of it. So he helps out with that. He's our backup vehicle driver as well. We have 2 meteorologists on the team. Justin Urena, he is a meteorologist out of Ohio, and Brandon Feaster, who is a United States Air Force meteorologist.
Oh, wow.
He's currently on deployment right now, and we just want him back safely, of course. And then last but not least, we have I'm blanking completely on who the. Nope, that's everybody. No, that's 4. Yeah, Blake.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Okay, yeah.
You got 4 besides you.
Yes.
I was going to say, I guess
Math is hard in the
Jonathan,
morning.
I know, helps you guys out a little bit, I guess.
Say again?
Jonathan.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
Jonathan Egbert's our computer engineer. He just lives here in the metro Atlanta area.
Yeah.
And he helps program all our stuff and, make sure everything's running that
Right.
way.
And I may or may not have had a couple of influences on these probes that have been built,
Really?
So, yeah.
Do you want to talk about that, Warren?
Yeah. Well, I did help them just CAD up some stuff,
Nice.
engineer some things, weld some things. Robert Brandon too. Shout out to Robert, one of our volunteers, helped out with the latest tower probe rendition. So, but yeah, anyways.
Yeah. So Warren helps out tremendously with everything.
Awesome.
He's kind of our structural engineer, as we call him.
Yeah.
Like I said, getting us CAD files, quotes on certain materials. Helping us out fabricating those materials.
Right.
So without Warren, we don't have probes basically.
Right.
So we thank you
That's
tremendously
awesome.
for that. But so our most successful intercept probably came in May of 2021. We had a great little stint out there. Saw a lot of tornadoes every day. But we were near the town of Selden, Kansas, which is in far northwest Kansas, in late May. And we started observing the storm, and, Justin got on the radio, said, "Hey, pull over. I think, this thing's about to produce a tornado." So we pull over on the side of the road. I set up my tripod, got the best straight 10 minutes of tornado footage of my life. Just it stayed dead center the entire time.
That's awesome.
And about 3 minutes in to this tornado forming, I said, "Oh, I have probes."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You got so excited, didn't you?
Yeah,
with
I
the
did.
shot. Yeah.
And I just looked up at this thing, and I
cool.
started, observing it, just with my eyes for a good 30 seconds. And I said,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'm going to deploy the probe here."
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Right here?" I said, "Yes, right here," because we have maybe another 10 minutes before this thing is going to come over this spot.
Right.
So I picked up the probe, turned it on, jogged down the road, this dirt road, maybe, 300-400 feet, kind of eyeballed the tornado because you want to watch for any kind of wobble of it or see if it's coming straight at you, just getting bigger. And it was coming straight at me. And so I said, "Okay, this is it. This is our first real, this thing's going to get hit by a tornado deployment."
Yeah.
Because we deployed previously a few times, but it was always on the outer fringes, or the tornado, jogged to the left or the right.
Right.
But I knew in my heart of hearts, I knew that this was it. I knew that we were about to see our first success.
That's awesome.
And so I dropped the probe, went back to the vehicles. We were still able to stay on site for another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, dust clouds getting bigger beneath it. I said, "Okay, here we go. This is it." And we took off, went east into town, south out of town, and then the other part hit me. I realized the town was about to get hit.
Oh, man,
that's
yeah.
something you just never want to see.
Right. The other side of storm chasing.
Exactly.
That's, yeah.
I've pulled up on damage before. I've seen the aftermath,
Yeah.
but I hadn't seen it actively happen before. So I was trying to mentally prepare myself for that. But as we were flying, east and south, I realized the probe was getting hit, and I got on the radio, and I'm just screaming like, "It's hitting the probe!
That's
We
awesome.
we did it!" And
Yeah.
the town did get hit, but thankfully there was only 1 or 2 minor injuries, no
Okay.
fatalities.
What was that tornado rated? Do you remember?
I think it was only rated EF1.
Oh, okay.
Which was wild because in the video I have, you see these suction spots coming up. and
Right.
It knocked over a freight train car.
Jeez.
Wow.
And I just thought, I don't know if an EF1 tornado can necessarily.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so that was definitely our most successful intercept, and that's where we learned how to really deploy.
Yeah.
You have to gauge the storm. You have to, be ready for what the tornado is going to throw at you, and that's hard to do because you never know what it's
don't
going to
know.
throw
Right.
at you.
Yeah. It's
So-
only what you can visualize and see coming at you at the time,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And so, we learned a lot from that deployment, and we learned a lot about our tactics, and we refine them every chase. Every chase is a learning opportunity. Every intercept is a learning opportunity, and the tactics change. You have to be able to change your stuff on the fly.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges when it comes to putting probes in front of tornadoes. Like, talk about some of the,
besides
there's-
getting in front of a tornado.
right. That
And the danger of
the
that?
danger. Yeah. And I guess, like, there's certain things that coming down to the forecast, choosing the right storm, road networks. Like you said, there is
Other
the safety.
chasers,
Right. So what are some
Especially
of
now.
Yeah, especially
There's
now.
so many more chasers
Yeah.
on the road.
It's gotten crazy over the last 10 years, and I think it's been probably about 4 or 5 years since I was last on a tornado alone when there was nobody else around.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but all of those are extreme challenges that we face every time, because you have to remember safety is still paramount. This is not a safe thing to do, but you have to operate as safe as possible. And other chasers present a challenge for that. The road networks present a challenge for that. Rain, hail, extra wind from the RFD.
satellite tornadoes.
Yeah, satellite tornadoes.
Right.
Everything. So all of that is running through my head while I'm driving, while I'm gauging the tornado, while I'm thinking about the probes.
Yeah,
and which
make
ones
sure
I'm
you
gonna
turn it on
activate.
before you throw it on the ground.
Man, I'm glad we haven't had to deal with that yet, but I know it'll happen eventually. Some internal component probably will fail.
Yeah.
It is challenging. There is a lot to do. There's a lot going through your head at all times, and you just have to, roll with it. You just have to be able to separate everything out and, gauge the risks and determine, okay, is this a probable tornado?
Right.
Is this one that we can safely deploy our instrumentation on and get out of the way,
Yeah.
given all of the factors that are there?
Yeah.
So, it can take something as simple as, a chaser blocking a road, inadvertently to
Or running over your probe.
or call to be able to call off the deployment. And we actually did have one of our probes run over a few years ago, which is wild considering they're bright orange and it was way off the side of the road.
You would be surprised, right?
Right, yeah.
Now nothing surprises me, but I tell you, if somebody tries to run over a tower, they're going to have a problem.
Right.
That's
Had to replace the oil pan after that one.
Man, if they run over a tower, they're going to have to replace a lot more than that. I think. But yeah, so it's a lot out there. It's a lot that goes on. It's a lot that we have to work with and deal with.
Yeah.
But we make it happen.
Right. You guys
gotta
do.
Make it happen.
That's awesome.
Always look forward to you guys going out every year and kind of keeping tabs on what's going on. Because I know we've talked a little bit, like in our first episode, about how Sirens project came about. We were doing drones into tornadoes and like stuff like that, and then it kind of led into the relief side of things. But our project all started kind of with the El Reno tornado. That kind of shifted everything into the direction where it is now. So Jared, tell us a little bit about like your experience in the El Reno tornado. I mean, we were in the same vehicle, but then how that kind of led to the inspiration of Convex, and kind of just that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all idolize Tim Samaras. He was the pioneer of modern storm chasing, I think, and certainly the pioneer of getting probes out.
Right.
No disrespect to Vortex 2, all of the government-funded projects, but nobody had a success rate like Tim did.
Yeah.
Right.
And we got to meet him, 5 days beforehand, before El Reno, at some McDonald's restaurant. He was so accommodating to us, and that was, I think, my real inspiration of I want to get into the probe side of this.
Right.
I'd grown up watching him on TV and seeing his seeing his debut on Storm Chasers, and then started really doing research into what he was doing. And I wanted to be like him, I wanted to do what he was doing. Well, when El Reno happened, funny enough, we weren't even supposed to be there because I think the day before everybody had wanted to say, let's go home because we hadn't seen tornadoes for a couple days.
Right. We had a little dry spell
Yeah,
there.
we were in dry spell, which is weird in May in Oklahoma.
Right.
And so we, I just wanted one more day. I said, give me one more day, guys. I promise we'll see something tomorrow. Yeah. And boy, did we see something.
Yeah, history.
Yeah, big time. 2.6 miles wide at that point.
Monster.
Over 300 miles an hour winds recorded in the
From
Vortex
Dow.
by the Dow teams.
Yeah.
So, when that happened and we got through that somehow, by the grace of God or whoever was watching us.
Yeah.
We somehow made it through that. And I thought everything was great. I thought everything was great after that. We survived. Everyone was fine. There were no issues. The next day, we went back to the road that we fleed on and helped a lot of homeowners.
I was gonna say, it's one of our first the disaster response efforts was the day after the El Reno tornado. We just stopped by this homeowner's house. I still have the video of that. As a sweet old lady had a lot of some tree damage and a lot of sheet metal and stuff from neighboring buildings. So it was kind of shredded there. If I remember correctly, I think it was like a kind of like a carport type thing next to their house. That blown sheet metal all over the place. And we stopped, and it was kind of funny because I think. We were one of the only chase teams that had stopped to help. Everybody else was driving by looking at the damage, but we were out there trying to help pick up the pieces. But
I mean, it was the right thing to do.
It was,
because I want, at first I just want to see the aftermath. I wanted to see what we got away from, and then I saw it, and I was just overcome with we have to help these people. And there were others helping. There were locals there, but
a lot of locals.
An extra set of hands never hurt anybody.
No,
not at all. So we went to help. And we felt amazing after that. Everything was great. It was a beautiful evening. Started the drive home, and a few hours later, I got a phone call from a friend of mine who'd been there, and he was checking on me. He said, "Hey, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, we're alive. We're okay. We're unscathed." He said, "Good, but I have some news to pass along." And that's when we learned of Tim, Paul, and Carl not making it out of the tornado.
Right.
Yeah.
And that catalyzed something in me because. I suffered from PTSD after that. I suffered from survivor's guilt after that. Just a whole myriad of mental health problems that, honestly, I really didn't get help for until, just a few years ago. I just kept treating the symptoms and not the cause.
Right.
Very glad to say that, therapy really helped me. And
for sure.
It's gone very well with that. But I just knew immediately after El Reno, I said, the mission can't end like this.
Right.
The dream can't end like this. The science can't end like this. And nobody wanted to step up to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't blame anybody for not wanting to step up to do something that just killed, 3 of the best storm chasers on the planet.
Right, because Tim was like a big advocate for safety. I mean, we saw that from the Storm Chasers series, where he was pretty conservative on some of his play calls, especially in Dixie Alley.
Yeah,
and some of the team was getting frustrated, like, we need to get closer, we need to do this, and like stuff like that. And he didn't want to jeopardize the team. So I mean, it was kind of a shock to everybody to find out that the first casualties in storm chasing. Were some of the safest guys, and it's just a huge reminder.
He took the chances, but everybody does when you're chasing. You're rolling the dice every time, especially with probe deployments. You can only be so safe, but he advocated for it. He wanted to be as safe as you could while doing this, doing these deployments. And, that tornado just was unpredictable.
Right.
It was, the big phrase afterwards was it was practically designed to ensnare storm chasers.
Yeah,
that's how it felt.
Yeah,
felt like there was just this monster out there that was, the bear was snapping its jaws at us, and somebody got bit.
Yeah,
and it was you never want to hear about any fatalities in a tornado, but to hear about that was just devastating.
That was devastating.
So, but I knew then. I told myself, I said, do not let Tim die in vain. Just had this tremendous feeling of get out there and do it. Nobody else is doing it, and that's fine, but I'm going to do it.
Be the guy.
Yeah. And so I started the probe game. First designed a probe kind of modeled after the Vortex probes.
Right.
Those big yellow ones that stand up, have instruments on them.
Little droid-looking things.
Yeah, big steel plate. And we got a couple deployments out of that, but nothing even close to a tornado. But it was still really cool to have and be able to deploy because we started learning.
Yeah. Right.
This was 2014, 2015 that we started learning immediately how difficult this is, how difficult this game is. And so from there, we kept that one. We kind of came up with a joke name for it. We called it Thor's Hammer because that's how it looked. Yeah. So so Thor, our probe, and then after that, I believe we acquired yours. You had designed a probe.
Yeah, I was a mechanical engineer, but I was working for an armored truck manufacturer at the time and had access to a lot of cool toys, So I catted up kind of my own idea of a storm probe using some scraps that we had, but it was manufactured out of Mil A 46-100, which is actually like military spec armor plating.
That thing was heavy and that thing was tough. You could probably shot that thing anywhere. It would've been fine.
Right, it was good. It was a fun little project, and I gave it to them, because we were getting into the drone game at the time, and so we had this dream that one day we were going to deploy. It never worked out. We never could get that connection to happen in the field because there's a lot of moving parts. But we wanted to try to do a ground probe and then a drone intercept on the same tornado,
same time.
And get that. That was kind of the idea. But
one day we'll bring that back. I'm still sure that one day you and I are gonna go out there and try and do that again.
Daniel's been itching to get out west. He hasn't been out on. He's been on a lot of Dixie chases with me, because that's where we primarily operate now for relief efforts. But he really wants to go out west and see a proper storm.
Well,
so
if you can't make it out there, you are welcome to join us at any time.
I would love to.
We've always got free seats open, and
that'd be awesome.
we want everybody to experience it who wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's so we got that probe. And we actually deployed that a couple times.
Yeah.
Got that one closer than Thor ever got. Actually,
that's so funny.
So that was cool, and then. We started looking at a new design, the classic turtle probe, these orange cones that are more or less designed specifically to go into tornadoes because the angles have all been calculated by Tim, actually. He's the one who came up with the calculation of what angle you needed to be able to not only withstand the wind, but for the wind to actually act as a downforce and hold the
push
probe
it
down.
into the ground.
To anchor it. And we didn't have access to Tim's probes, rightfully so.
Right.
His spouse still keeps possession of it, and she's very conflicted on what to do with them.
Yeah.
We've spoken to her, and she still doesn't want to let them go, but she did tell us, she's like, if I ever do, you guys are first on my list to call, which was very, very kind of Kathy to keep us in mind like that. So we had to look elsewhere, and we actually found chaser. His name is Randy Hicks out of Arkansas.
Yeah.
He's known as the Outlaw Chaser.
I was going to say, I remember that name, Outlaw Storm Chasing or whatever.
He's also very serious about the probe game. He's one of the last big contenders in it.
Yeah.
And he's he's still deploying stuff, and he's making new probes himself.
That's cool.
And so I approached him. I said, hey, we'd like you to build us one of these.
Yeah.
And he said, and you're serious about this? I said, here's my resume, basically.
Right.
You are one of the few left deploying probes. I said, yes, sir. And you've been doing this a long time, and we've been watching you, and we'd like something from the best.
Right.
And so he designed us this little orange turtle probe. That thing's gone through 50 different names. We don't really even have a name for it anymore. I think. Just the turtle. And so we started using that. And in 2019, that got its first taste of the wind. We deployed it next to an EF3 tornado in Mangum, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Same thing. We just watched this big wedge tornado coming at us for a good 10, 15 minutes. And as it got closer, I said, okay, this is it. Here we go. And so I dropped it on the ground. And our initial route was we were on the north side of the tornado, so the tornado was coming at us, and so we decided we were going to go south as an escape route. We started going south, and there was so much chaser traffic everywhere. The roads were blocked. I said, this is a death trap if we get caught in there.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh, well, I have one more probe. I have Thor. Let me deploy that probe as well. So I get out of my truck, I go around to the back, I drop the tailgate, and I look, and then I had to look up because
it was that close.
It was 300 yards away from us, and it had gone into this big rope tornado, just this gorgeous drill bit tornado.
Was that 2019 or 2020?
It was 2019.
2019. Yeah. Was that the infamous May 20th or
that
high risk
massive
day?
high risk where we're just like there's going to be 150 tornadoes in the next 12 hours. And there was like 8. But we got on one of those, thankfully.
That's awesome.
And so so I was getting ready to deploy Thor, and I looked up and I saw the tornado, and I just slammed the tailgate shut, and I ran back into the truck. I said, nope. And turned around and drove north for maybe about 5 minutes, and turned around and watched the tornado cross the road right where we had been, literally right where we had been. And I was kind of kicking myself later for not deploying that second probe because I had time. But the survival instinct kicked in. You can't ignore that, no matter how long you've been doing it, no matter how many tornadoes you've seen or what you've done. When that survival instinct kicks in, you listen to it.
Absolutely.
And you get out of the way. So watched across the road, got some fantastic footage. Unfortunately, it did miss our turtle probe, but still got fantastic footage of that tornado just crossing in this field. I think 700 feet, 720 feet or something from our probe. That was a very close shave.
Yeah.
And from there, we started building more. I brought the design to Warren because I'd moved back to Atlanta by that point. I was living in Oklahoma City previously. And going back and forth to Arkansas was kind of a long trip. And so I asked Randy, I said, hey, is it okay if I have somebody local manufacture these? He said, yeah, no problem.
Oh, cool.
These are yours to do what you do. Don't have a patent on it or anything.
Right.
The big thing is just do something with it.
Yeah.
And so I brought the design to Warren. He built me 3 more. And so we had a small fleet of these at this point. And we started really getting into it. In 2021, again, we got the Selden, Kansas tornado. That was our first direct intercept. So stoked for that.
Yeah.
And then I believe in 2022, we got our first dual probe deployment where we actually got multiples of these out.
In the same tornado.
Yeah.
Really?
Unfortunately, the tornado did something dumb. It was moving east right at us. We were in Iowa. It was moving due east at us, and then all of a sudden it just decided to go due north.
Yeah,
Right.
like,
And
what the heck?
I'm just like, really? You're going to miss both my probes like
Right.
that?
Yeah.
But still got some fantastic footage,
That's great.
which is very useful as well for scientists to
For
be able to
sure,
do
yeah.
photogrammetry. They can judge how fast the wind is
Right.
moving by tracking a certain parcel
Right.
in the video.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then I don't really think we got anything great in 2023 or this year, unfortunately. We did have some deployments, but, they were far misses or the tornado didn't quite form.
Right.
Things like that, which that's all part of it. That's all part of the chase.
Yep.
But this year we manufactured a new probe.
Okay.
This was also inspired by Tim Samaras and kind of an amalgamation of a few different probes. We call it Tower in homage to his Tower probe, and Tower stands for the Tornado Observation and Weather Environment Recorder.
Okay.
And this is our first full-fledged probe with a GoPro 360 camera on it. We're getting high-end stuff now. We put an $1,100 weather station on it. That's ultrasonic, no moving parts.
Right.
Wow.
We have our probe computer, which is, also recording, pressure, temperature, humidity, so we can, correlate the data with the weather station. And, that was a fun build. We spent quite some time on that.
Yeah.
And we got it all built up. We were hoping for field trials this year,
Yeah.
and while we saw something like 9 tornadoes, none of them had a viable deployment opportunity.
Yeah.
So
That's how it goes
That's how it
sometimes,
goes.
man.
What is a viable deployment
Right.
opportunity? How do you know, what instinct do you follow, or what,
yeah.
what drives you to know, okay, I need to drop it now?
Well, mainly it's location. It's location. It's being in the right part of the storm at the right time. And this year it was a little bit difficult. We were usually behind the tornadoes, and obviously you don't have a deployment opportunity behind the tornado.
Right.
So it's really just being able to judge the storms and being able to get from point A to point B as quickly and safely as possible, so you can deploy your instrumentation. So we just didn't have a viable opportunity this year because, again, behind it, or tornadoes were lifting too quick, or they didn't form properly. So and it happens. There are years where you don't get it, and that's fine. There's next year, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, this year was kind of interesting with tornadoes. We saw a big shift back to traditional tornado alley.
But
earlier.
Yeah.
We had like almost a month earlier than what you would normally anticipate. And I thought it was interesting. I think NWS Birmingham had like some of the fewest tornado warning or watches issued in like recent history.
I think they've only had 5 warnings issued this year.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
It's unheard of, So, it's just really interesting. I think you guys are going out, you said, a little earlier next year, right?
Yeah. We have been noticing that things are going earlier this time. It used to be that Tornado Alley, our Tornado Alley season would be the last couple weeks of May.
Right.
Because that was the peak of it.
Right.
That's when things were really firing up. But as it gets warmer earlier in the year, it's harder to get late May is now turning into June, and June is typically when the switch starts getting shut off.
Right.
So we are now planning a late April, early May opportunity. We're going to be going from, I think, April 26th to May 4th next year.
Yeah.
And we're going to see what happens, because if it's anything like this year, we're going to see 50 tornadoes.
Jeez,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
That was a crazy year for
We'll
sure.
see what happens, because we're in La Nina now, and
Yeah.
it depends on how the patterns line up, because it's going to be probably a warm and dry winter, which you usually need some good moisture out there in the winter time to be able to fuel these storm systems.
Right.
So We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like the forecasting, long range forecasting, is so funny to me because it's you really, I mean, you have to plan ahead, like sometimes a year in advance, right? That's what we did when we were doing the drone stuff. Is we'd pick 1 week, usually it's the last week of May, but like for 4 years in a row, the last week of May was the quietest, like time period. It was like, what the heck is going on, man? Like,
tornadoes are repelled by science. I swear, they do not like being probed. They do not like having drones.
Well, we've decided that they repel Warren.
Right, we have a joke,
Warren is a tornado repeller.
It's insane how many like just incredible setups I can just absolutely ruin by just physically being there.
Right, and the tornado killer.
Right, we had a joke that we just like our part of the Sirens project mission was going to be just getting me into a risk area,
and then boom,
that just flips the light switch off.
Right, like it's uncanny. Like everybody
saving lives, one Warren at a time.
You could be in a high risk in Oklahoma, and the best tornado of the day would happen in California.
Right. You're absolutely like Alaska records the most photogenic tornado of the year, or something crazy,
like
but. So would you guys, I know you guys primarily operate in traditional Tornado Alley for obvious reasons, visibility, everything like that. Is there ever a time you think that you would pull operations into Dixie on like a certain outbreak? Like say, let's just hypothetically say that April 27th, 2011 was going to happen again. Is that something you guys would consider, deploying on? I know it's kind of crazy in the Southeast, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, we always have our probes with us for every chase because you never know when a viable deployment's going to come up. You never know if that tornado is going to be the one that gets you the most incredible data set ever. So in that scenario, we would certainly be chasing and having our probes with us, but we would also be looking very carefully at the safety factors such as terrain, road networks, and storm speed. Because you get these storms moving more than 40 miles an hour, and typically we're not deploying on it because you just don't have time.
Right. You can't physically see it, line up with it, get all your instrumentation on, lay it down on the ground, get back in the car before it's already on top of you.
Exactly. Deploying is quick, but it's not a super quick process. It takes time, and. So, we would certainly be out there in something like that, but deployment would hinge on all the safety margins for sure. And we've all chased in Dixie. We've all chased in just about every state.
We grew up chasing in Dixie. I mean, that's where we
did. I certainly did. And it's dangerous down here because, you just have so many trees and towns and
poor road network, river crossings.
River crossings, majorly poor road networks, roads that'll suddenly dead end. And it's rough out here for sure. So we would look at it all, and if it was right, or we felt okay, let's just let's basically fire at the side of a barn and see if we get a hit.
Right.
Yeah.
Something like that. Sure, we might put out a probe or two on, but traditionally we try not to operate east of the Mississippi.
I got to ask this question: if you had, say you have all your tower probes ready to go, all this stuff, what tornado setup would you retroactively want to chase more than any setup in the world? Not knowing what you know now and things that have happened, which one would you? Dodge City? No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Don't put an answer in his mouth.
Blaze was at Dodge City, and that was amazing. But man, those tornadoes, you want to talk about trying to deploy on those. You have 6 different tornadoes going on at the same time.
Right.
You're not going to be able to make it. Man, that's a difficult one because there are just so many that come to the top of my head. I'd love to say tri-state because I would love to get some data on that, but that thing is sometimes moving at probably 80 miles an hour at some point, so I don't necessarily know if I'd want to get on that.
Yeah.
I wish I'd been at Pilger, the amazing, dual EF4 tornadoes that happened out in Nebraska. I could have chased that day, and I didn't because I didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Man, that's one of my biggest regrets for missing. And then, just all of the other major plains outbreaks that have happened, the Heston, Kansas F5, I can name any F5 on the top of my head. Greensburg. But I guess it'd probably be Pilger, just to try to get out some probes on that, try to get some, again, knowing what I know now.
Right. You'd have 2 opportunities on that one.
I'd run out of probes pretty quick. I wouldn't be able to do that. Going back to Bennington even and trying to get something out on that, or going back to Manchester with Tim and Reed and everybody else who was there, that would have been incredible. So it's difficult to narrow down one when you've seen so many amazing ones in the past. But I'd probably say Pilger just out of just out of spite almost.
Right,
Like I wish
right.
I'd been there. Darn
The
it,
one
I
that
could've
got
made
away,
it.
man.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so Daniel, if you were to ever, you're a weather nerd like all of us, but if there was not necessarily deploying pros, but if there was any storm chase, like any weather event, tornado related, that you could go back in time and like witness or chase that weather event, what would it be?
Truthfully, I'd say April 27th.
Yeah.
Just because of how close to home that hit.
Right.
And
right.
just, there's, we live obviously in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, and that was close. That was
there's a
close.
lot of
I
local
remember
communities.
I've mentioned this before. I'm at work and my sister, who lives in Tuscaloosa, is texting me pictures of her TV with James Spann on the TV and the Tuscaloosa tornado in the background.
Right.
Like, pray for us.
Yeah.
Pray for us.
Yeah.
And then I remember that night, that was the first time I ever had the opportunity to log on and watch James Spann's coverage on the internet from home and watch him make the transition where it was now out of his market.
Yeah.
And then there was that moment where I'm like, okay, I've got to change the channel now to my local news coverage, because this was a little bit before chasers were streaming.
Right,
like we watch
Streaming
now.
was like really primitive.
And certainly before the cell networks were good enough to
Absolutely.
carry a decent signal.
Yeah, and so you're going into that night going, what is going to happen?
Yeah.
And then to wake up and find out Ringgold got hit
Yep.
and all of these other towns up I-75 that we drive all the time, you know, and you just, to be able, I mean, you were on it. Were you out there that day?
No.
Okay.
I took one look at the forecast that morning, and I said, if I go out there, I'm going to die.
Right.
I skipped the econ exam to go. To go chase
I
that day.
was living in Southeast Georgia. I was like, no, I'm good.
Oh yeah, you were in St. Simon's.
Yeah.
During that time,
yeah.
so it was a little bit of a drive too. Anyway,
It wasn't even that. I just looked at everything. I looked at the, and I was a newbie
Storm
back then. I looked at the
motions.
parameters, and I'm just like, nope. This is not the time to do this.
Right.
Well, and it's really an example of why Dixie Alley is so dangerous.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when you look at where that went, you're talking about it crossed interstates. It crossed through towns. Just all the different tornadoes that day. Just the extensive tree damage, but also damage inside Birmingham and Tuscaloosa and other places that are hilly, tree-lined. We've driven, for years, driving back and forth from Memphis to Birmingham to then Atlanta. You used to have to go down Highway 78 out of Birmingham and through Adamsville and these other towns. And I mean, you just think to yourself now, like, I drove through some really bad thunderstorms, just regular thunderstorms, just going home to visit my family and thinking, I could not imagine being out chasing on old Highway 78 or,
what's lurking behind the rain.
Right. Or
like
what's lurking behind these trees.
Yeah.
You can't see, either side of the road for the trees. And just, I think that if you could take like a drone's eye view or an up high view of that day, that would be the perfect weather video.
Right.
Just being able to see from outside, because there obviously are tornadoes on that day nobody saw. Nobody has footage of. You don't know what these looked like. You only know what the damage looks like and what they did.
And you'll notice, comparison to what it's like out in the plains, there were no helicopters up that day.
No, you're sure.
No
We
helicopter
had like
footage
2
that
tower
day.
cams, and that was it, basically.
Yeah. And, I don't know if that's necessarily because, again, the markets are different out here, or if the FAA just said, do not fly, or whatever may have happened that day. But yeah, there's no aerial footage of those storms. And that would have, like you said, that would have been the most incredible tornado video ever, still even today.
Yeah.
If you'd had one chopper up on the Tuscaloosa tornado, that would have changed tornado
Yeah,
video
or like Phil
forever.
Campbell at Hackleburg, like Smithville, Mississippi, some of those.
Rainsville, just everywhere.
So many prolific, just record-breaking tornadoes that day.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
And I always wonder when we're going to see the next super outbreak.
Yeah,
Because it'll happen again.
It'll be in our lifetime, I think. What's every 30, 40 years or something like that. So, and who knows, like, doesn't matter where you stand on like climate change or anything like that, but things are definitely, cycling and changing, and we'll definitely, you never know. I mean, those things could, just like these flooding events, these 1,000-year flooding events that happen every year. I mean, you never know if we ever reach a point like that.
Things are changing, and like you said, you can fall on one side of the debate or the other. But at the end of the day, the fact is things are changing.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it is impacting how we're forecasting. It's impacting
Absolutely.
our forecast models.
Yeah.
Because our forecast models are some of them are based on a stagnant climate, on
Right.
just like on the same parameters.
What's the status
every time.
quo?
Right.
Exactly.
Or like what,
Exactly. It's going off averages. So when you get something off the average, it doesn't know what to do.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
The model can't properly forecast and predict what's going to happen. And
Right.
again, they're just forecast models,
Right.
just an idea of what can
Right,
happen. But
right.
we've noticed a few times where the actual event has been the complete opposite of what
Yeah.
the forecast model has
Yeah.
said, and it baffles us. We're just like,
Right.
why
Yeah.
did today go the way it did?
Right.
And that's another reason we're out there, because even without probes, we have weather stations on our vehicles, and so we can look at that data later
Right.
and send that to the National Weather Service and say, hey, today didn't go the way anybody planned.
Yeah.
Here's some data from these points throughout the day, because we are a roving weather station. Yeah, you have weather stations stationed throughout the plains,
Sure.
but
Right.
here's something from this particular location at this exact time. And
basically mobile mesonettes
yeah,
are what you guys are.
yeah, mobile mesonettes is what we have, more or less. And the amount of times that I've called National Weather Service's office and said, "Hey, I'm a private researcher and I have data on this storm from mobile mesonet, or especially from a probe," they just stop on the phone and
Wow.
they said, "You have what?" And I
Right.
said, "Yeah, I've got this." They said, "Please, here are email addresses. Please send this
Yeah.
in immediately," because they're not expecting that.
Sure.
And you hear a little bit of hope rise in their voice that,
Yeah.
oh, there's people out there who are still taking this seriously. There's people
Yeah.
out there who are still doing this.
Yeah.
It's not just about the video effect.
The YouTube notoriety, the
Right.
social media
Yeah,
effect.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can go into that for an hour.
Right.
If I want to, but
Yeah. Right.
yeah, it's changed how everything is perceived. It really has, not just from a chasing aspect, from a social aspect.
Yeah.
It's people are relying on different sources, and sometimes those sources are wrong.
Right. Sure.
And it's that's another reason why we're out here doing stuff like this, is we're trying to educate people. Hey, you need to get your information from reputable sources.
Yeah.
You need to get it from trusted media outlets. You need to get it from trusted official sources
Right.
like
Yeah.
the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, the National Hurricane Center,
Yeah.
and not Joe Blow from TikTok.
Right.
Right.
Like, please.
Exactly.
If-
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing you take away from this, please stop getting your weather information from TikTok,
TikTok,
and please follow reputable sources.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
There's
it's
my
huge.
PSA.
That's huge.
That's
yeah,
great.
it's huge.
We think about for Convex, a forecast bust
Yeah.
isn't a bust.
No.
Because you're able
Nailed
to capture data that explains where they missed on the forecast.
Exactly.
Right. That's
And
almost
it's
as
not
more
that they
important.
missed even per se.
It's
Right.
that the forecast couldn't pick up a 5-degree shift in the
Right.
wind, which can change the entire day. It
Right.
didn't
Absolutely.
pick up the 2-degree dew point difference
Yeah.
that
Right.
we did that can change the entire day.
Absolutely.
It didn't predict the fact that the convective temperature was 89 and the actual temperature was, 87.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
you're off by a degree, storms can't form.
Yeah.
Right.
And so every little bit, every chase is a learning experience. Every chase is a chance to gather some kind of data. Every chase is a chance to analyze the atmosphere.
Right.
And the more we can do that, the more anybody can do that, the more that we learn, the
Right.
more that we can help in the future, and reduce things like warning fatigue,
Right.
reduce things like the siren mentality.
Yep.
Be able to help somebody at the end of the day, even if there was no storms and everybody's fine, we can still help somebody learn,
Right.
hey, just because today didn't go the way you planned, please don't discount
Yeah,
the next time.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Because again, it's one or two things that can make the
Right.
make the difference.
Right, and some
Yeah.
of those high risk days, even like the social media aspect, it gets hyped, and people are expecting this prolific outbreak. But some of those high end upper echelon days are a knife's edge, right? Like
Right.
that's forecasting if everything comes together, and but like we said, one thing could be off and the whole day busts.
Yeah.
And some of those higher end days
Yeah.
are even more prone for that.
Yes, yeah.
because one of those pieces of ingredients or whatever, if it's missing, then the whole day, is just off kilter.
If the cloud cover stays for 10 more minutes,
Right. Right.
that could ruin the whole day. That's kind of what happened on that May 20th day
Right.
in Oklahoma. The cloud cover held for about an hour longer than we were expecting, and
Right.
that threw the whole day out of proportion. If the cloud cover had broken at noon the way they had expected it to,
Probably would have been another generational outbreak.
most likely, yeah.
Right.
But a little thing like that
Sure.
can throw the whole day out.
Yeah,
of
that's
whack.
what a lot of I think the general public doesn't understand
Sure.
too, and it's not to their fault. I mean, it's just we're in this because we love weather and we're like kind of nerds about it, so we pick apart everything.
Yeah.
But all they hear is the messaging. This is gonna be an insane day.
Yeah.
Like warn your whole family, call everybody you know, like this is going to be a wild day, and then nothing happens. Like nothing ever happens.
Well, that's what
And
you talk about, the fatigue of it.
Yeah,
Right.
the warning fatigue.
Warning fatigue. I mean, it's real.
Yeah.
But you have to take it seriously every time because
Exactly.
you're a percentage point off. I mean, we're talking about what's the percentage rate for a high risk day? What do they say? It's 30.
Yeah,
30%.
30% for a tornado to occur in a 25 miles of any
Right.
given point inside that.
Yeah.
So there's
that
still
percent.
another 70%.
Right.
Yeah.
That
right.
we're not accounting, that this could miss, you
Correct,
know, or
yeah.
that this in your locale
Yeah.
could completely miss. And thank God it does many times, right?
Right.
You know?
It's the same thing. You know, with warning fatigue, it's the same thing where it's like, hey, you know, you have a 70% chance of rain today. Somebody doesn't see rain and they curse their meteorologist.
Yeah.
They say, you guys don't know what you're doing. 70% isn't a lot, really.
Right.
You know, you still have
Right.
a 30% chance of failure.
Right.
Right.
And that's massive when it comes to things like that.
For
So it's
sure.
not that the meteorologist doesn't know what they're doing. It's not that they're making, you know, oh, I wish I could be wrong at my job 90% of the time.
Right,
instead of
Right.
being-
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's the same thing that,
Yeah.
that we're dealing
For
with.
sure.
Is it's, you know, you have to understand that there is a failure percentage in there, and you want it to fail. You know,
Yes.
I personally would rather say, okay, there's a 30% high risk for tornadoes today in Georgia.
Yeah.
I am hoping that the 70% failure kicks in.
Absolutely.
Because I would rather see a failure and say, okay, cool, we, you know, thought that there was a good chance of this happening. It didn't happen. That's good. Nothing happened.
Right.
Everybody's
Plus no
fine.
one got hurt. Right.
Exactly. But instead, the mentality is to, you know, curse out the scientists and
Yeah.
to curse out the meteorologists and say, you guys don't know what you're doing. This is terrible. And with the, you know, with the way social media is today, the negativity gets spread further than the positivity.
Yeah.
And that just increases the warning fatigue and distrust. And that's something that we're working to combat as
Right.
well. It's just very difficult.
Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of data, where do you see, and this is all going to tie in kind of to disaster response, where do you see the future of tornado forecasting? Is it in high resolution modeling, you know, to the point where we can even realize where a supercell is going to form, which ones that like in these convective allowing models, which ones will produce tornadoes, you know, maybe even 24 hours in advance down to the county where they might be. You know, I know Lee Orff is doing a lot of like high resolution type stuff. Do you think that's kind of where the future, like with AI and, you know, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, do you think high resolution modeling is kind of going to be the future of tornado forecasting, or what are your opinions on that?
I don't think so, because just, again, the models are built on just the data they have.
Right.
And it's so hard to get data from something that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So I don't think that the future of warning is necessarily going to be in that front, because you already see, you know, the weather, the weather reports will come on and they'll have, you know, hey, this is a future cast of what it could look like.
Right.
But, you know, take this with a grain of salt. The important thing is the parameters are there. It doesn't matter what the future cast radar looks
Right.
like. You just need to be ready. What I think the future of warning looks like is more detailed warnings.
Okay. Yeah.
Where you're going to have little polygonal blocks in
Right.
there in different shades, you know, and so you have a tornado warning, and right around the hook echo or the mesocyclone in there, you're going to have like red pixels. Like, hey,
Right.
if you're within these pixels, you are
It's almost like a percentage chance, like a
Right.
small scale,
small scale
convective outlook
percentages.
almost,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's where I think the
Yeah.
future of warning is going to lie, is being able to give the risk percentage that you are facing from the storm.
Right.
So, you know, everybody within the warning box is in the green pixels of, hey, you need to pay attention. This thing could be anywhere. But as it progresses through the warning box, the pixels start changing colors
Right.
as, okay, these people are safe. These people are starting to get in the path of it. We have a reported tornado, so the pixels get even redder.
Right.
And then, you know, black to
like
where
tornado
it's approaching a
emergency
town, like
or
tornado
whatever.
emergency. So I think you're going to see more detailed warnings for the warning process. I think you're going to see those kind of, like you said, those almost storm-specific convective outlooks
Yeah.
in real time.
I think it'd be huge.
I also think you're going to see better radar. As
sure.
we're developing, our radar systems, our Doppler radar, I think you're going to see faster scans.
Yeah.
5 minutes used to be the norm for each scan. Now they have a rapid scan mode where you get an update every 2 minutes if there's ongoing storms, which is fantastic.
Right.
I think eventually you might see 30-second scans.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think you're going to see them pretty quick, or at least different kinds of radar that are specifically meant for that. Of hey, this specific dish is going to rotate this fast to be able to get us real-time data as best as possible.
Right.
And so you're going to narrow the warning times, and you're going to be able to increase the message.
Right.
Of, hey, you need to pay attention to this more so than you usually would.
Yeah.
Because right now, you look at warnings, it's typically at a county level.
Yeah.
You've got a tornado warning for Cherokee County.
Yeah. And they'll
our
like draw
county-
a polygon, but it's like,
but everybody
still
in the county is
gets
still
the
like,
alert.
yeah.
Right. Well, I live on the furthest edge of Cherokee County. That's a long way to Waleska.
Right. You're
It
absolutely
is a
right.
long way.
It's like
and
35 minutes.
Our siren goes off where I live, goes off when Fulton's goes off, because I'm right across the Fulton County line.
Yeah.
But Fulton, I mean, you're talking about Tyrone to Waleska where I live.
Right.
So I need that much more hyper local.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
that's
my
where that
alarm's
fatigue comes
going
in.
on. Right. My alarm's going off all the time.
But the tornado could be 35 miles away and not
Exactly.
coming anywhere near you.
Right.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful day.
Exactly,
You know,
and that's a thing about the warning fatigue. Is
Right.
it's okay, tornado warning, and then you go look at the news, you go check the radar. It's like, why am I getting the sirens
Right.
35 miles away from where the tornado's going to
Right.
be? And I get warning the county. I get it. You want to make sure everybody within a certain radius is aware. But
Yeah.
again, something like that is extreme.
Right.
And so again, you get people looking up saying, I don't even hear thunder. I
Right.
don't see a storm.
Right.
It is beautifully sunny out here.
Yeah.
Right.
Why am I getting this? And
Yeah.
then they take to social media and complain about it,
Right.
and other people agree with it,
Yeah.
and it just spirals out from there.
I mean, at least the next level down, we have zip codes. If we could get to even
Right.
this zip code is warned for
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
area, you're at least a little tighter,
Yeah.
a little closer.
And I think with smartphones and stuff like that, I definitely think they'll be able to, kind of narrow down on that with in conjunction with some of these new, maybe warning types, that we're talking about and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think we're going to get there, and I think it's going to be huge. And I love what you guys are doing with the probes and stuff. That all that data and everything to better, forecast tornadoes has a huge implication on what we do. Because if we knew ahead of time what communities were going to get hit, and we could pre-stage, our route clearance team and stuff like that, even 12 hours in advance, that'd be
Right. Whereas right now you've got a moderate or high risk area
anywhere
and
in
that's
there.
as close as you can really get.
Exactly.
Right.
And then you just got to set up in the nearest major city outside of the risk area, so that way you're not in danger.
Right.
And that, that's a lot, because sure, if there's a high risk in Mississippi, you could go set up in Memphis if you needed to, but
Right.
you would rather be even closer than that, so that way you can make sure, okay, we are right here ready to go immediately for route clearance, emergency response, things like that, versus, okay, we're now in Memphis. Now we have a 6-hour drive to get there to help.
Right.
Who knows what's happened? Who knows what this is looking like?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
as the watches and warnings can get more specific, the better that's going to benefit everybody, because that benefits us being able to say, okay, this thing has a confirmed tornado. Here is the projected path. Here is the projected risk areas for that. We can better position ourselves for deployments. And in turn, when you guys can see, okay, all that's happening, then you can say, all right, we're going to stage 2 miles away from where the tornado's going to hit, because we know it's going to be
Right, exactly.
So it's
It'd
just
be
a
huge.
matter of just continuing to develop the data, continuing to develop the forecast models, and continue to improve the warning process. They're always working on that. They're working on refining the enhanced Fujita scale right now, from what I've heard.
Yeah. I think it's
that's
overdue.
Very much.
Yeah.
Because you have building codes aren't the same everywhere.
No.
You have to be able to situationally look at these things. You can't just say, okay, this is the code I'm looking at for a house that's been standing in Mississippi for 100 years.
Right.
But it's also the same code as a house that's been standing in the Atlanta suburbs for 6 months.
Right.
You have to be able to situationally look at it and say, okay, what wind speeds did this realistically take?
Yeah.
And so I think they're working on refining it. I don't know if they really have even put out an ETA for that yet, but I still
I'm
think it's
not
going to be a
sure.
few years. But it's time.
Yeah, it
because
is
we
time.
haven't seen an EF5 rated tornado in
Since
11
2013.
years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
Yeah.
you know, people worry about the ratings a lot, and I do believe they're important. I do
Yeah.
believe the tornado warning is important, but the tornado rating is,
Right.
is important. But it's you know, at the end of the day, the house isn't standing.
Right. It comes down to the impacts. Right.
Exactly.
Which is kind of like hurricanes. You know, it's based on wind speed and everything. But like Helene, in my opinion, could have been, if we're doing impact based rating instead of like wind speed rating, which I
Right.
think is important to look into. I would have rated that as a Cat 5, right?
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
impact
From
scale.
from a damage scale, and
Right.
that's what the EF scale is right now. Is it's a damage scale, but with hurricanes, it's not a damage scale. It's based off of It's based off
Right.
of measured wind speeds.
Yeah.
And I think why not have the EF scale be like that? Is it because you're worried that we've seen that tornadoes are much more powerful than we thought.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
EF5 wind speeds derived EF5 wind speeds are much more common than we ever thought.
Right. And Dows are recording over 200 miles an hour like all the time.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
So
the
it's like-
Mangum, Oklahoma tornado was 208. So
Yeah.
we technically saw an EF5.
Right,
when-
exactly.
If it had hit anything at that stage.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of trying to find a balance of, okay, we've recorded data in the EF5 range, and we have damage that we're seeing in the EF4 range. How can we correlate this, and how should we properly rate this?
Right.
So it's, it needs some refinement, but it's still there. It's still working.
Right.
And, we'll see what happens in the next few years with that as well. There's a lot going on in the weather world right now. There's a
Man,
lot of
yeah.
fascinating things happening.
Really?
Sure.
And I think that the future is bright for,
Yeah.
no pun intended.
Right.
The future is bright for weather and for science for it.
Yeah.
And for meteorology.
Yeah.
So, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing with our probes. We're going to keep going out there and keep deploying, keep getting the information that we can, and keep sending it to the right people.
Right.
Until we don't want to anymore.
Right.
You're too old, you know?
Right,
You got
yeah.
weak knees and you can't pick the probes up anymore. man.
And to quote,
Until you throw your back out,
yeah,
pulling
to
a probe
quote
out.
the late great Tim Samaras, why did I have to make damn probes heavy?
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
And he's they
That's
got to
so
be heavy
funny.
for what they're doing.
Yeah.
But man, you pick up that probe one too many times, you're like,
Right.
all right, I need a break now.
Right.
This is
Lift
this
with
is
the
crazy.
legs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tower's a heavy thing.
Well, we'll finish up here with, I'm going to ask, one more question. Speaking of the future, what is the future of Convex? Where do you see your efforts going? More teams, more probes, better equipment, kind of what's your mindset
Yeah,
on that?
so we're learning every year, we're refining every year. Tower was our latest innovation. We seem to think of something new every few years of, hey, we want to try something different. The big thing for me right now is I need a new vehicle. I'm driving an old Jeep, and these probes are heavy. And that's one of the things that caught Samaras was you put three grown men and 3 steel probes and all your luggage in a vehicle.
Yeah.
You're reducing some of your power.
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's why I've been a little bit hesitant on some of these deployments, is I'm factoring in that safety factor as well. So the next big thing would be a better chase rig,
Right.
more similar to yours,
Right,
a 2500 or a 250 platform.
Yeah.
Get it lifted, good mud tires, nice weight on it,
Right.
and space to carry all our probes.
Absolutely.
So the next things are more turtle probes.
Yeah.
We want more of those because our goal, since we're also spread out throughout the country, our goal is for each team member to have 2 turtle probes and a tower probe.
Wow.
Because we want to do them in that kind of line. We want to deploy a turtle, a tower, and then a turtle, and hope that the tornado hits one of them.
Right.
And so we can get information from around
Right.
it as well. So the goal is more probes, more towers, refining things, better weather stations. They're coming out with some new models
Yeah.
that are pretty cool, very nerdy,
Yeah,
very
right,
nerdy stuff, nerding out about those. And we, we're just going to keep innovating and keep up with new technology. And ideally, one day I'd like to live stream from a probe.
Oh,
You know,
man,
I'd
that'd
love
be
to-
yeah,
love to put in
absolutely.
love to put in the satellite or internet equipment into it.
Right.
Sure.
To be able to live stream just straight from our probes.
I think that'd be
That-
huge.
That would be
Yeah.
really cool.
That'd
I
be
don't think
huge.
anybody's done that before.
No, I don't think I've
necessarily.
seen it. Yeah.
So the future's big for us. We are, going to be expanding. We're, every now and then we'll bring a new member on board or see if somebody's interested
Yeah.
in joining us. But at the same time, we're trying not to expand that too much.
Sure.
Right.
Because we take this very seriously.
Right.
You know, we have to know each other very well.
Yeah.
We have to have some kind of camaraderie, because without that, the mission will fail.
Yeah.
That's just another failure factor they have
Right.
to put in. So, new equipment, new vehicles, more probes, and just to keep up what we're doing, to keep on getting out into the plains, keep deploying tornadoes, keep getting that data, and keep getting it to the right people to help everybody, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is we want to help somebody. If, we're not necessarily in the business of saving lives like a lot of, storm chasers say they are, but one day it will save somebody's
Absolutely.
life. And if it's one person,
It's worth
it's all
it.
worth it.
Yeah.
It's all worth
Very
it.
much so.
We're excited for what's coming.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to be following next year.
Yeah.
See what you guys are going to be doing, and hopefully have an awesome intercept,
Yeah.
opportunity, and we get to see some of that footage and data.
Yeah, man.
So-
Yep. And for anybody out there who wants to support us or anything, you can check out our website, convexstorms.com. Through there, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our merchandise. We got some cool Twisters stuff in
There
there,
you
some
go.
Storm Par
Nice.
shirts. So feel free to check us out. And thank you guys so much
you're
for
welcome.
having me on here, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll
happy
put a
to
link
do
in the
it.
description of their stuff and everything like that. And do you have anything, Daniel?
No.
Man, it's good.
This
is
is
good.
really
Yeah.
insightful.
It was a lot of fun. Man, Jared, thank you so
Yeah,
much for coming
yeah,
on,
thank
dude.
you, Warren.
Thanks, dude.
Really appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We'll see you again soon,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah. You guys call me anytime. I'll come talk your heads off.
That sounds
okay.
good. All
All right,
right.
cool.
Appreciate
Thanks.
you.